Zaffa presents Nosy Neighbours, written by Freya Sampson and read by Sarah Lambie. Chapter 1. Dorothy. Years later, when the residents of Shelley House looked back on the extraordinary events of that long, turbulent summer, they would disagree on how it all began. Tomasz in flat 5 said it started the day the letters arrived. 6 innocuous-looking brown envelopes that fell through the communal letterbox one Wednesday morning in May. Omar in flat 3 claimed the problems came a few weeks later when an ambulance pulled up in front of the building, its sirens wailing, and the body was loaded into the back. And Gloria from flat 6 said her astrologer had told her way back in January there would be drama and destruction in her near future, and, more importantly, that she'd be engaged by Christmas. But for Dorothy Darling, flat 2, there was never any question of when the trouble began. She could pinpoint the exact moment when everything changed, the single flap of a butterfly's wing that would eventually lead to the tornado that engulfed them all. It was the day the girl with pink hair arrived at Shelley House. That morning had started out like any other. Dorothy was woken at 6:30 by thumping from the flat overhead. She lay in bed for several minutes, her eyes squeezed shut as she chased the last shadows of her dream. When she could put it off no longer, she rose, her knees clicking obstinately as she moved through to the bathroom to perform her morning ablutions. In the kitchen, Dorothy lit the stove with a match and did her morning stretches while she waited for an egg to boil and her pot of English breakfast tea to steep. Once they were ready, she carried a tray through to the drawing room, where she consumed breakfast sitting at a card table in the bay window. So far, so normal. As she ate, Dorothy observed her neighbours depart the building. There was the tall, ferocious man from flat 5, accompanied by his equally ferocious, pavement-fouling dog. Next came the pretty if only she would stop scowling teenager from flat 3, staring at her phone and pointedly ignoring her father, who followed her carrying a battered briefcase under one arm and an overflowing box of recycling under the other. As he emptied the contents into the communal bins, a tin can missed the deposit and rolled onto the pavement. The man hurried off after his daughter, oblivious. Dorothy reached for the diary and pencil she kept near at all times. 7:48 a.m. OS 3. Erroneous rubbish disposal. Once the morning rush hour had passed, Dorothy dressed, brushed her long silver hair, and put on her string of pearls. She was back at the window by 8:50, just in time to see the red-headed woman from flat 6 departing hand-in-hand with her current paramour, a tall, bovine man in a cheap leather jacket. After that there was a lull, and Dorothy changed the beds and dusted the objets on the mantelpiece, accompanied by Wagner's Götterdämmerung to block out the din from the flat above. And then, a little after 10, she was brewing her second pot of tea when she heard a tremendous bang from outside. Dorothy abandoned the kettle and rushed to the front window, where she watched an old ramshackle blue car pull up in front of the building, its rear wheel mounting the curb. A great cloud of black smoke burped from the exhaust pipe as the engine puttered out, and a moment later the door opened and the driver emerged. It was a young person who looked to be somewhere in their 20s, although at first glance Dorothy was unsure if it was a man or a woman. They had short, unkempt hair dyed a lurid neon pink, and were dressed in a pair of dungarees of the sort one might expect a labourer on a building site to wear. The youth did not seem to have any kind of coat or knitwear, despite it being unseasonably cool for early May, and Dorothy could see tattoos snaking up their arms like graffiti. The person reached into the back seat of the car and heaved out a large, well-worn backpack, then kicked the door shut, causing the vehicle to shake precariously. It was only when they turned to face Shelley House that Dorothy realised she was looking at a young woman. The girl...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?